No.
Prior to.
Friday.
Well, good morning, everybody. Appreciate you guys coming and ladies. I want to give you just some real quick updates here in just a few minutes. Before we do, I want to introduce those that are here with us for this press conference today. Our mayor here in Collierville, Mayor Stan Joyner, Doug Korneski, the special agent in charge of the local FBI, Deputy Chief Sam Hines with the Memphis Police Department, Assistant Chief Rodney Bright from the Germantown Police Department, Director Brenda Jones from the Shelby County Office of Preparedness, Chief Buddy Billings from Collierville Fire. And so we're going to start out with Mayor Joyner. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Welcome to Collierville. We wish that it would have been under better circumstances, but this is, for the town of Collierville, I think, going to be one of those where will you win events where people will reflect back and say, where were you the day that the Kroger shooting happened? That's not something to be excited about, but it is something that's a reality. I want to give a special thanks to our first responders, our police department, our Chief Lane, our fire services department, Chief Buddy Billings, and just to tell you that they made us so proud of the response that they made to this tragic event. We appreciate all that they do each and every day, and certainly give kudos to them for their actions yesterday. This is not over. It'll carry on into the next few days, so I'm sure there'll be a lot more to come, and at this time I'll turn it back over to Chief Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's appropriate for us today to start out by recognizing the one fatality that we had, Miss Olivia King. And so I ask that you remember the King family in your prayers. I want to give you an update on the victims. We received information earlier and we were able to confirm that we have the number of shot is 15 now. They're in stable condition. Thankfully, our prayers were answered. We didn't lose anybody overnight. There's still some people that are battling, so continue to pray for them as well. Tell you just some real quick things about the shooter. I'm not going to give you his name today. I'm not giving him notoriety in this platform, but Major David Townsend will provide anybody that wants his name shortly after this briefing, okay? So we're just not going to do it in this venue. One of the other things that some of you have asked me about is, was he an employee? He was a third-party vendor for Kroger. So with that, I wanted to just update you on where we are in the investigation, what has taken place since our last news conference. If you remember yesterday when we talked, we had two active situations that were going on. And you remember the vehicle that we talked about. We had EOD teams from ATF, Sheriff's Bomb Squad, MPD, and they made sure that there were no explosives associated with that, and a package that was actually a backpack that was on the shooter, and there were no explosives involved in this. The next thing that we had going last night was CPD detectives, Sheriff SWAT, FBI evidence response team executed a search warrant at 885 Federal Ridge Road, number 102. Right now, the evidence that was taken from that location is being processed to include all electronic evidence. Today, we're continuing processing the scene behind us. It's going on. This should go probably late afternoon, maybe even into the evening hours. And so we're very thankful for our partners that's been here to help us. thankful for our community too. I hope you all saw the number of people in this community that showed up to support yesterday, whether it was local pastors praying, restaurant owners providing food. It is much appreciated. One of the things that I've talked to several people about is, yes, this is a terrible tragedy, but there is so many things that did go well yesterday that prevented additional loss of life. There's a couple things that I want to highlight in particular. One is, as we entered that building, and it was very obvious that the employees and even the customers knew what to do. There was run, hide, fight. They secured themselves. I told you yesterday, we removed people from freezers, closets, hiding between pallets of groceries. But they did what they had to do until we could get in there to help them. The second thing I want to highlight in that is that there was no delay in getting medical attention to them. I've been doing this for 34 years, and this is the first time in my career that I have seen firemen wearing ballistic helmets and vests. Now, I told you yesterday that we did a training exercise. That was June the 4th. That was Germantown, MPD, Sheriff's Office, Collierville, law enforcement, but also Collierville Fire was integrated into that, and there's no doubt in my mind that that training served us well yesterday. So I want to commend Chief Billings and his team. I think that's where I'm going to leave it now. We'll open it up for questions. Anybody behind me that I've listed is available for questions, so we'll start out there. Yes, sir, Daryl. Daryl, we're getting a clearer picture of what's occurred, but I'm not ready to release that yet. We need to go through and make sure that, again, just as I said yesterday, we want to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's in this, and as soon as we're able, we will release the information we have.
Chief, there were Davidson County tags on that suspect's car. What's the connection to Nashville?
That's part of the investigation. We'll confirm some information on that a little bit later.
Chief, was the individual fired from his job?
I don't have that information at this point. That's something that we probably can refer back to Kroger, but we'll try to get you that information.
Some of the employees here are saying that he was a disgruntled employee that was walked out earlier in the day yesterday. Can you confirm that?
No, I'm not in a position where I'm going to confirm that. We're continuing on with the investigation. Yes, sir.
Chief, you look ahead. What's next for you all today and the days ahead in this investigation?
Well, for us, it's to continue this scene and take our time to make sure that we do it right. And then for me and our team at CPD is to make sure that we get them the emotional support that's coming through critical stress debriefings and our assistance from partners across the state. What will happen is officers that have been involved in similar incidents will come here. They will be able to talk it out with our officers, kind of let them know some of the emotional impacts that they're going to see over the coming weeks, and so we're going to make sure our team gets the help that they need.
Chief, can you talk to us about the first responders that quickly jumped into action, and are there any that may be available to speak with us?
We can make some available for you. When you talk about first responders, you can just about look at any blue uniform that's out here. From the command staff members, at the moment that went out, our sole priority was neutralizing any potential threat and putting ourselves between the subject and any potential victims. And so we were in a command staff meeting, and the way it worked out, based on information that was coming from the scene, our command staff was some of the first coming in the front of the building. We had officers coming in from the back. But so at that moment, it's all about stopping the threat.
I know you obviously you don't want to talk about the shooter, but can you talk about the weapon he used? I know you have ATF on the scene. You want to talk about any of that at all?
I do not at this point. We are still going through. That's part of the investigation, and we will release that in the coming weeks. But right now, it's not the time. We're less than 24 hours.
Do you know if it's legally purchased yet, the weapon, or?
We'll talk about that here in the coming weeks.
Chief, you said 15 have been shot. Does that include Mrs. King as well as part
Yes.
of that 15?
Yes.
Chief, more on the motive. Do you know if these were a random selection, or because from what we've been hearing from the people who work inside of here about a disruptive employee again?
Well, I mean, that's definitely an avenue that we're looking at. But now we don't want to speculate. I don't want to tell you something today and then have to come back to you tomorrow and tell you that we didn't get it right. So if you'll bear with me, we'll at some point we'll make that information available.
Chief, could you talk about the emotional state of your officers, those firefighters, the other agents who responded to that yesterday?
I mean, I think I can speak for all of them. We have broken hearts, and you know, nobody wants to go into that scene. I can promise you. And so, you know, you do what you have to do, and we talked about this yesterday. I mean, there were bloody people running out of that building, and there was not one blue uniform that hesitated. I mean, from the bottom all the way up, we're in there trying to help.
At what point did the shooter take his own life?
Well, it wasn't too long. I mean, it was as we were pulling up to the scene. To my knowledge, it happened really quickly. And if you look at historically, usually that's what happened is as law enforcement's making the scene in many of these cases, that usually is when the shooter will take their life. So that's what we believe happened yesterday. It's really hold up just a second.
You had a chance to watch the video on the inside of the store.
I have not had the chance to watch the video.
Can you tell us about how long the ordeal was? You said it was very quick. What's very quick?
Well, I told you yesterday that our first call on the radio was 4 minutes later. Actually, I found out after the briefing that one of our cars was flagged down in the parking lot by a citizen who said there's shooting going on at Kroger. And he pulled into the lot, was trying to find what was going on. He didn't know if it was in the parking lot or where it was. He was actually in this parking lot as soon as the call went out, and then immediately cars began coming into the area. But it was over in a matter of minutes. I mean, probably a couple of minutes, I would say, from the time that our first car started getting here. Sirens were coming, and that's when we believed that he took his own life.
Chief, did any officer engage the suspect? We saw the broken glass.
No.
Chief, do you have any information on those 15 victims that have demographics, sex, age?
What I can tell you about the victims that we know, and this was one of the questions that came up yesterday, is that we had 10 of those were employees of Kroger, and 5 of them were customers. Other than that, that's where we'll leave it today. One at a time. Let's go right here.
You know how many are still in the hospital and what their conditions are?
I do not have that information right now. A lot of those particularly those that walked in, have been released, and so we've got our detective, and it's changing. So we know that we still have several that are in very, very serious condition.
To what extent did individuals take on the gunman? Are you aware? And does Kroger
we're not ready to talk about that.
Does Kroger have surveillance video, and will that be released? You know?
That's part of the investigation, so we're not going to talk about it.
Did any of your officers fire?
No.
How does your training at FLETC, at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, how did that help you to yesterday with your officers?
Well, I am not. I personally haven't been to FLETC, but they're teaching we're teaching some version of run, hide, fight. And as well as our officers know, we don't wait till SWAT gets on the scene, or we don't wait. You go and engage. That's why you had officers of every rank heading into that building. And that's a decision that we all have to make ahead of time. You can't, you just have to program yourself to know that if we're ever put in that spot, you go. That could be my wife, my kids in that building, and that's the way I look at it, and I'm going. And that's what every officer out here did.
Chief, was anyone detained while executing the search warrant last night?
We did question an individual, and they were all cooperative. And there's no additional charges or anything that's gonna result from that last night.
And what led you to this location? Was this
To this location? Gunfire.
The place where the search warrant was conducted.
No, that's the resident of the suspect.
Chief, what's this like? Have any other law enforcement agencies from other communities that have dealt with the aftermath of this kind of event, have they reached out to you? What's this been like for you all to be in this unfortunate fraternity of active shooting aftermath?
Well, we've received calls from all over the country. I think the one main lesson that we learned that we can talk about for us is that you don't want to be building relationships in the middle of the crisis. And that's the thing that's happened here is that we have great relationships. We train together, we talk, we work together, we plan together, we share crime data. All of that comes into a response that creates synergy. And so I'm thankful for our partners. And a lot of people deployed yesterday that weren't even called. I mean, this parking lot was full of police officers. I think we had I was told that we had a Shelby County fireman who came in off duty, got in one of the ambulances and was helping. So we had officers that self-deployed. So I'm very proud of that. My heart's broken for the victims here, but we could be telling a little bit different story had it not worked this way.
Chief, do you mind if I ask fire rescue to
No,
speak for a moment?
absolutely, Chief.
Do you mind introducing yourself first?
Chief Buddy Billings, Collierville Fire Department.
Chief, the chief just described how your firefighters and EMTs went into the scene. Can you describe what they experienced, what kind of patients you guys have dealt with inside?
I'll defer the status of the patients back to Chief Lane, but our guys did not hesitate 1 minute. They relied on their training. As Chief Lane said, we had a combined training exercise on June 4th, and one of the first things I talked to Chief Lane about when he came here 2 years ago is getting together and training, so we're on the same page. Yesterday was a tragic event, not only for our community but for the families. I'm from here. I was born, raised here, and it tears at my soul to see what's going on. And I pray for each person that was injured yesterday. I pray for the firemen. I pray for the policemen, because the world came to Collierville, and training paid off yesterday. I cannot tell you how thankful I am to have a mayor and board that stands behind their first responders. We purchased our ballistic gear 3 years ago to date, October 3 years ago, and they didn't hesitate when I approached them that we wanted to prepare for such an event.
Is it your opinion, sir, that training, that equipment
Yes.
saved lives?
Yes. The guys yesterday, because of the training, the equipment furnished to us, they saved lives. We got in quick and got out quick. And I can't say more than that.
Sir, what's it like for your fire department dealing with the aftermath of this? Just like Chief Lane was saying, you never know when this kind of active shooting situation can come to a community. How is your department kind of hanging on, getting through what happened yesterday?
Well, I can tell you everyone's in a fog right now. They are hanging in. We visited with each guy that was on the scene yesterday. They're all doing good right now. We do have our critical instant stress debriefing teams coming, as well as Chief Lane had already reported. We will get into that sometime probably tomorrow and start working through that.
What does it say about your department, just like Chief Lane was saying, that there was no hesitation, no matter not knowing what was going on inside, that you all ran in without hesitation?
You know, I've been in the fire service for 44 years, right here in the town of Collierville, and I've never been so proud of a group of people in my life, my whole career, that looking in their faces yesterday, there was no hesitation to do or go anywhere to help their fellow man.
Chief Lane,
Yes.
there were reports of a search in Antioch last night. Can you confirm if that's related to?
I cannot.
Chief, at some point, likely employees and neighbors are going to return to the store.
Right.
What's that going to be like? Will this place ever be the same?
You know, obviously, it's it probably won't. This can with victim assistance, but I would encourage the community: don't live in fear. Don't live in fear. This stuff, it's a tragedy, but we have to move on. We can't let them win. And so, how do we do that? We prepare ourselves, have a plan. We know run, hide, fight is the simplest thing. I always take it back to when I was little, and the fire guy showed up and said, "Hey, if you ever catch on fire, stop, drop, and roll." I promise you today, if that happens, I'm going to stop, drop, and roll. So if we take that run, hide, fight, Don't live in fear, but say, if I go somewhere, know where my exits are so that I can get out if something were to happen. And just plan, make a real quick plan in advance so that if something like this occurs, you're not trying to build it in the middle when you're stressed to the max. We already know. We know where we're going.
How can you say don't live in fear when we're constantly seeing situations like this one pop up? There was another one at a supermarket in Colorado just 6 months ago.
Well, it's difficult, and I'm definitely not making light of it. I'm saying it's a choice, and I'm asking people to do that. And another thing that we can do as a community, most of the time, and I'm not saying in this instance because we don't have any information on that, but most of the time these type of events are planned, and somebody talks to somebody. That's the time. I can't tell you how many times we get. And it's more than once a year where we get calls of potential things like this where we follow it through. We follow everyone through, no matter how minor it seems, to make sure. So we'll never know how many we prevented by doing that. So people have to get involved, provide information, help. It's a whole community approach to public safety, and we're blessed here. That's what we have received is support, and our community does help us. And yes.
Does the shooter have any past criminal history, or is there any biographical data that you can give to us about the shooter?
I don't have that available. As far as criminal history, there is some I don't want to say minor charges. There were some, I believe there were misdemeanor arrests, but nothing for violence or anything like that.
Based off what you just said, would you say this was planned, or was this like a crime of passion, like it just happened?
Well, now we're going back to motive, right? It's phrased a little different, but let us get through the investigation, okay? I want to get you that information. I know you all want it. We all want to know the why. But today, less than 24 hours, we just don't have that. We're not ready to tell you that. I don't want to come back, like I said earlier, I don't want to come back later and us have not gotten it right.
Chief, can you confirm yet that this was a lone gunman and not someone working with a partner? Has that been confirmed?
I can confirm that, yes.
Chief, how
Yes.
long has the gunman been a third-party vendor for Kroger?
I don't have that information. We can try to get it for you, but I do not know.
Was this his typical workplace, though, where he comes to daily?
That's my understanding.
Miss King, she wasn't like a specific target or anything, was she, that you know of?
Again, we're looking into every angle. This doesn't appear to be that way. Doesn't appear, but we've got to verify that. All right.
Is there anybody from Kroger that can talk to us?
Do we have the Kroger PIO? Is she here? Okay. No, not at this time. Last question. Anybody want it?
Any other updates today, sir? Do we plan any other media updates today?
If we have any new developments that come up that changes our posture here, we will reach out. Our town PIO, Jennifer Casey, she's on top of that. So if you have questions there, she will be guiding that, as well as Major David Townsend. David, would you raise your hand? If you want the shooter's name, he will provide it when this is over. We just don't want to do it in a news conference. Last one.
As a police officer charged with protecting the public, so many of the people we spoke to say that this causes them to wonder about the most mundane things in life, going to a supermarket, for instance. As someone whose job it is to try and protect the public, what do you have to say to people who are thinking about their daily tasks in a different way as a result of this?
Just what we talked about earlier. Remain vigilant. If you want to receive the training, active shooter training, if you're a business owner, you're a citizen of the town, you contact the Collierville Police Department, and we will do everything we can to get you that training. That's the main thing, is to understand how to plan and prepare yourself for this. We hope that these things don't happen. And I said this yesterday. I had a former chief of mine that he would say, we hope it doesn't happen, but hope's not a plan. And so we need to, and that's what you saw. The plans played out, preparation leading up to this response.
Do you know how many rounds were fired?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. All right, that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Step over here.